All right. Well, I'm just thrilled to be on, Berk, because I think what God's doing through your leaders and the ministry there at NC State is really, I think, potentially a key for NPL guys who are pursuing urban and collegiate and places where there's transient type folks. And I want to learn from you and maybe even share this with some guys who've been asking questions about how are you consistently getting to fourth generation in that environment? What's the Spirit doing to see that happen? So can you give us a quick summary of the vision and the fruit that you've seen, and then we can dive into like practically how you're seeing some of this multiplication happen?
Okay. All right. Well, Daniel, thank you. Yeah, I don't know when it was, but we started realizing that people leave church. You know, I mean, whether it's we're predominantly in a campus setting, but people leave. So why not help them leave with a vision?
Right.
And so we started casting the vision to our students that if they left, if they had been learning how to love God and love people and look for the lost to making disciples, then go with your friends and start a new church, and or at least start a fellowship,
right?
And to see what God does with that. Yeah. And so, and then even the reality is Leviticus 26:8 says 5 will chase 100 and 100 will chase 10,000.
Amen.
So we started thinking, Lord, would you raise up 10,000 laborers that would know how to start from scratch?
Yep.
And so we had the 5, and now we're moving to 100. And so we're just kind of believing that God says if He's able to do more than we can think or imagine. So at least we need to start thinking and imagining and let Him do more than the 10,000. But we started just realizing, how are we going to equip the people that are with us for a short amount of time so that when they leave, they have a confidence of how to make a disciple and how to, start a fellowship that could grow into a church.
Amen. So, cool. Well, so 10,000 laborers, God's given you this vision. You've been pursuing it and seeing some cool fruit. Can you brag on what God's doing a little bit? I know just what kind of baptisms, churches, and even generational growth are you seeing? And then,
Okay. Well, we're seeing like this past summer, for 1 month, we saw 4 people baptized. We saw 24 people pray to receive Christ. So you might say the ratio is not that good, but at least we're bringing, being in the South, and you run into people saying, well, I got baptized as a child, and then you got to bring up the thought that, well, Jesus was probably dedicated as a child, but then when he became an adult, he got baptized. So we're trying to bring that up, and we're starting to see this baptism is being brought out on the table a lot quicker.
Right.
So it was neat. We saw this one guy, Jason, received Christ. The next day we got together with him, went over the Ethiopian eunuch. And I'll be honest, I was thinking, okay, he's going to probably say, yeah, this weekend would be nice. Let me call some people. But after the lesson, he said, hey, look, there's a reflection pond at Clemson University. Let's go do it right now. And I'm thinking, gosh, God just slapped me in the face, and just said, let's go do it. And so, it's just neat to see how people respond, to it. Not everybody responded to that, but that's been neat. Fruit-wise, as far as just the, it's kind of like we are seeing fourth generation, not only fourth generation disciples, but fourth generation groups or churches. We do kind of make a distinction because we realize that if the people don't identify as church, they're not church.
That's right.
I may say they're church, but if they don't really embrace the identity, so what we have started, we've got our we call them area churches, and even on Sunday morning, we still have a Sunday morning. We'll let people know, hey, this is a celebration time, but this is not church. If you want to really understand church, get involved with one of our area churches, or get involved with one of our discovery groups.
Okay.
And a discovery group is a group that is sponsored by an area church
Okay.
It's either helping people discover Christ from creation to Christ.
Yep.
And we used to focus just on internationals with that, but we're
Right.
seeing just so many Americans have no clue even who Abraham is. We're starting to have that go as, let's just start Genesis and go through creation to Christ. So they're discovering about Christ, or they're discovering about God's will in the church.
Right. Right.
And so those discovery groups are laying the foundation of what it is to be a follower of Jesus. And those groups discovery groups will usually kind of join in with other groups socially.
Yep.
And even evangelistically,
Mm-hmm.
to where there comes a time when the leaders of those two discovery groups, because they've been meeting like for supper or playing basketball or doing something like that, or doing outreach together, they'll say, hey, look, we've been doing this. Why don't we really form a church? Because they've gone over the church lesson, the Acts 2. And so we're seeing those kind of morph together. And,
whoa. Okay. So you've said a lot here that there's a lot to unpack. And when I first understood what you were like, what this actually looked like, what you just said, it really blew my mind. So let me draw a picture, see if I understand what you're saying. So you've got, say, a generation 0 existing church. Maybe it's, you've got a legacy church, in fact, that meets on Sundays, right?
Right.
And then out of this church, you're seeing what you're calling D groups or discovery groups start, right?
Well, no, really, it's more from that. We've got our area churches. We've got 11, well, maybe 16 area churches.
Okay.
And so we push people to that. But you are right in that we do have some discovery groups from the legacy church.
But when you started those area churches, they began as discovery groups, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So
you know more about us than we do.
No, I'm just trying to, because a lot of times people are wondering, how do you start from 0 here?
Yeah.
So they started as discovery groups, and then you said these are around different passions or oikos, and then these, actually I'm drawing this wrong here. I'm going to do it like this. So at kind of G0, we've got different discovery groups happening. And these folks are going out, sharing the gospel, and inviting people to come and learn more about Jesus in their discovery group. And then at some point in the line, these leaders decide, who are facilitating these groups, to gather this into a generation 1 church. And you're calling that an area church, right?
Area church, yeah.
Right? So at generation 1, they are then doing the same thing. They're meeting regularly here, but then they're going out into the harvest, sharing the gospel, and inviting people into these discovery groups.
Right.
And these guys are then again deciding to gather these folks into a generation 2 church.
Right.
Then goes and does the same thing. And this is so cool to me in a number of ways, because I see disciples making disciples, but then churches making a decision to plant churches together.
Right.
So break it down for us. I'm curious about these groups. Like, how are they getting started? And, is there specific oikos that they're wrapping themselves around, or how do these groups get started?
Well, but basically the way we've approached it is it's more along the area like at NC State, there are, of course, the resident halls, and then you've got apartment complexes, and then goes on from there. So kind of like the thought of, we're looking for, on a positive side, we're looking for an Absalom.
Okay.
We're looking for someone who will park himself in front of a dorm or an apartment complex to interact and win the hearts of the people, to turn them away from the king of this world to the King of Jesus.
So I just heard you say you're using places, so they're owning a specific place, like a dorm or a. Cool, that's awesome. So they're how are they having those gospel conversations with people? Are they hitting them with the gospel right away, or is it?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like we're out there and we're just, we're just offering prayer. Hey, as crazy as this world is, as a Christian, I want to offer prayer. How can I pray for you?
Yep.
And of course, you've got the Acts 17 responses. You've got some who'll laugh at us, and some will say, "Man, I've never been prayed for." And others it's like you'll have a person like Quincy, ran into him, and God was not really on his mind. But when he saw the gospel and he said, "Yeah, my world is broken."
Yep.
He said, "Yeah, I now." So anyway, so you'll get those responses. Again, the baseball analogy that we're trying to communicate to our saints that that if you just approach somebody to pray and share your testimony, that's first base.
Yep.
If you get through the gospel, that's second base. That's a double. They pray to receive Christ. That's a home run. I mean, that's a triple. You meet back with them. That's a home run. And then if they have shared with some of their family and friends, that's a grand slam.
Yep.
And as you know, if you know about baseball, you've got a team hitting consistent singles and doubles, they'll win championships. Everybody likes the triples and home runs.
So you're saying prayer is first base, right?
Right. Yeah.
And second base is sharing the gospel.
Yeah, sharing the gospel. 3 circles. We do the 3 circles.
Okay.
So we're doing that and finding out where they are.
And third base is
they've received Christ.
So they're green light. They're a green light at this point.
Yeah, they're green light.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then home run is when they stay on. What?
Because sometimes like this one guy, Zach, great guy, received Christ, started letting me train him, but he was really connected with another church through his friends.
Yep.
And so, it's like, okay, he just, it's kind of like, okay, he didn't want to continue being trained by me. He said, look, these are my friends. I've grown up with them. I'm going to, be with them. So it's kind of like, okay, I've kind of done my part. I've kind of been my Philip to this Ethiopian unit.
That's good. That's good.
So, but I mean, I want to be able to keep training. So I'm always looking for somebody who wants more. And so
Amen. So prayer is a single, sharing the gospel is a double, pray to receive Christ is a triple. The home run again is you said baptism?
They'll meet back. And usually
they'll meet up. Okay.
They'll meet up where we can start going through the commands of Christ.
And the thing I love about this illustration is it gets people focused on the controllables, right? Yeah. A lot of times we're like, well, how many people have, been baptized, or how many? That's the Holy Spirit's work. But a lot of times in these urban and collegiate settings, we just got to affirm the controllable things. And so I know that's a core part of your vision cast, and I'm glad we can pick up on that.
Yeah.
But then when they meet up, they're essentially being invited to one of these discovery groups, right? Right.
And when we talk about discovery group, we're also think about 1 Thessalonians 2:8-9, where it talks about not only did I impart the gospel to you, but I imparted my life. And so, of course, you want to say, hey, let's meet back and go through Scripture to where you're feeding your soul. But also, a couple of us going to be playing ball, or we're going to watch the ball game, or we're going to do something socially together. Right. So, I mean, they're not just meeting once a week for a story or going through a discipleship 3/3. How often would you say they're meeting on average, these groups? Maybe 2 or 3 times, maybe more. I mean, that's what I was thinking. So they're actually building some oikos here, because before
that, you know, a lot of these people are meeting, coming to a new city, they're moving on campus, and you're having to literally build oikos, right?
Right.
And so you're saying they're going to actually befriend these people after they share the gospel with them, and go watch a movie or go watch a ball game. It's
Or
not
go
just,
study.
or go study together. Okay.
Yeah, because like there's one discovery group that they say, hey, look, God wants to be good in school. Let's Thursday nights from 9 to midnight, we're going to study together, make sure we're studying.
Okay, so study.
So they go to the library and they study, and then they'll grab a meal together, and they're usually, now again, this is where it's a little more kind of thought. It takes a little more thought. Is they're usually grabbing a meal together with another discovery group.
Okay, so how early, because I know ultimately they're heading towards collapsing these groups into new churches, but how early are they cross-pollinating like that and inviting one another? Is that a couple weeks in, or?
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks in, because again, usually what happens, a discovery group is usually either all guys or all ladies.
Okay, yep. I'm going to write that, so I'll just put guys, girls. Which is like, that's like a huge deal, because sometimes it's, especially with young people, it's harder to gather a mixed group early on.
Yeah.
It's easier to gather. I know as a single guy, I always tend to gather guys. And then the single ladies on my teams in Atlanta were always gathering single girls or ladies.
Right.
And the churches ended up being kind of in balance. Like we had one or the other, but not both.
Yeah.
So you're saying
they're starting to have some meals together, or and then usually I want to say it's when we go over the Samaritan woman about being a person of peace.
Yeah.
We will. That's when we're challenged. Say, hey, if we haven't shared the gospel, why don't we next week we'll grab a quick meal and we'll go out in the harvest.
Yeah.
And we'll pair up girl guy. So we're not limited to who we approach, because usually, guys are going to approach guys and girls are going to approach girls.
Sure.
So we'll pair them up and then do that for an hour, then come back together.
Okay.
And so they're in the harvest together. So now they've been doing some things socially. They're eating meals together. They're laboring together now.
Yeah.
And then when there's just more interaction, and then usually the leaders or the main facilitators of those discovery groups, they'll gather them together and say, look, we've been doing this. Let's be together.
Right. That's what you're talking about when this happens or this happens. And I want to learn more about how to do that. But first, just to clarify, these guys are the folks who are leading these groups. They're going to church together, right?
Right.
And so they're essentially already communicating and have a relationship in order to facilitate these relationships across these groups to begin to build, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's huge, because you've got the two church principle kind of going on here, but really you've got a team. How many of the folks on average in these churches are leading their own discovery group as a percentage?
Oh, maybe a third.
Okay, so that's say a minimum a third are essentially functioning as your discipleship team that's going out and starting these groups.
Yeah, there's some area churches there that like one has like 7 discovery church groups.
Okay.
There's another one that only has 1.
Right.
And so it's kind of varies. It's kind of like where everybody is. Some people are more just slower to get in the harvest and see the vision, but others do. So, but pretty much, I'd say a third of the people in a area church are trying to start something new.
Praise God. Okay, so in these churches, in these discovery groups, how big do they tend to get? Are we just talking a couple?
3 or 4.
3 or 4. Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 or 4.
3 or 4 consistents. Like sometimes they'll say, "Oh, we got 8 people coming," but you're only having like 4 people coming consistently.
Right.
You know. So.
Okay. So what are they generally doing in these groups? I know that you said they're getting some quality, intentional relationship time, friendship time, doing something other than intentional like discipleship. But when they do have their discipleship time, you know, how often is that every week, and what does it look like?
It's once a week.
Okay.
It's you know, going through the pattern of care, the 3/3 process.
Okay.
You know, we have a card where they can just, everybody knows this is the format.
Okay.
So they, you know, the care, the worship, the accountability, the vision.
Yep.
Sometimes now this is something we've just recently changed. We're doing this more with families because
Right.
some of the moms were complaining that the 3/3 process was way too long and their kids were rebelling. So
Okay.
we've asked them to do a vision cast that's a story.
Okay.
So
On the front end while the kids are in there.
What now?
On the front end while the kids are there sometimes.
Yeah. Like you know, like going through 2 Kings 7, 1 through 15. That's a real good vision for verse 9 when it says it's not right for us to be silent. We've got to go tell. But it's also good to be able, when you look at it and sword method it, it's a good lesson. So we're kind of blending that in together with so that it's not so long and drawn out. But they're still learning how to approach the scriptures, and they're still setting goals. They're still practicing.
Even in these discovery groups, you're trying to get all those pieces of the 3/3 rolling.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're setting that pattern of care DNA. Really, I'm just going to draw the 4 fields here for our NPL people. So I mean, your plan on entry is to offer prayer, right?
Yeah. Care and prayer.
Care and prayer, and then 3 circles with my story, right, on the front end of that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then here in field 3, in these groups, you're using pattern of care. I'll just write 3/3, but you're actually putting that on a sheet of paper now and having people.
Right.
I've got it right here. I could grab it. We just started doing that in Laos and Cambodia, and it's been a game changer because people are clear on what to do. And by like 3rd or 4th gen, they don't use the paper anymore, but it helps set the DNA early on.
Yeah. I was talking with one guy, and he's older, and he was talking about, well, Berk, I just like to kind of be a little more fluid and let the spirit flow. And I said, time out. I said, when you were younger, didn't you have a format to follow? And he said, well, yeah. I said, well, don't take that away from these young believers. They think they've got to be so fluid like you, they'll never leave.
Right.
But if you show them the format and let them do that and let them get familiar with it, then, you know, there'll be a lot of time to let the spirit flow.
Amen, bro. Amen. We've experienced that, right? In the churches you're leading and I'm leading, I know we both discussed this. Like, we love taking a break from the format sometimes, but the format is the default, right? And it's definitely what God has started, and it's what gets our new disciples from the harvest started. But what's cool I hadn't heard before is that you were using even a sheet to get people started. And it's got the stories and the pattern of care on it, right?
Right.
So what are the stories you're doing here in the discovery groups?
Well, we're really kind of going back to creation to Christ now, even for American students.
Great. And that's how many stories in that set?
Well, it depends. Sometimes they're 8, sometimes they're 20. But it kind of depends on the leader.
Sure. But there's some freedom there, and there maybe even sometimes they're pulling out stories based on the needs of the people in their groups, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily always a linear path here. They're having conversations here at church about what they're facing, and then they're giving each other advice on what stories try with these either new believers or And then would you say your commands of Christ are in field 3 as well?
Yeah, they are. They are.
And how many of those are you using?
We've got 9 of those.
Okay. So you got your 9 commands, and those are also building out your Acts 2 church function, right?
Right. Yeah. They're repent and believe, baptism, prayer, and yeah. So they're reinforcing.
You guys are hitting those as soon as you've got a green light. I'm ready to follow Jesus.
Right.
As soon as they make that transition. So really, sometimes your C2C then is probably more of a field 2 additional tool that you're using for yellow lights, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You're using for disciples yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then you're
But
trying.
we're still looking at we need to disciple unbelievers.
That's right.
Yeah, because
It's kind of a murky line here. Then is what I'm hearing you say. So you're going to do this after you share the gospel with them. Then you're gonna use 3/3 the whole time, and then you're gonna move to the commands as soon as they repent and believe.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool, and that's definitely a pattern we're seeing in North America, across the West, and even here in Asia. We're just trying to identify some of those yellow light stories. So how often are they getting to the commands in these groups, or does that normally happen when they gather the church?
No, I mean, well, again, it depends on where they are with the creation of Christ, but usually by about the 4th or 5th command of Christ, they've already been kind of hanging out together, but then there's the challenge to form together.
Okay.
I'll give you a good example, like with Matthew Staples was training Tresson. Okay. And discipling Tresson.
Was this like a G1 church?
Yeah, G1.
Okay.
And then Tresson had his guys like Jake and Chris and Aaron and Jared.
Okay.
And then Brooke.
So those are in his guys' discovery group out here. Okay.
Yeah, there is discovery group. And then Brooke had a few girls, Becca, Priya.
But both Brooke and Tresson are going here every week.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And then Tresson and his guys and Brooke and some of her girls, they started having meals together, going out, sharing together. And then they said, hey, look, let's do a church. Let's be church.
Okay, so then this happens.
Yeah, then it went down. Yeah.
All right, so how many times were they, I guess, cross-pollinating or getting together across groups before this happened?
That varies. I mean, to me, they could have done it a lot earlier. They wanted to take it a lot slower.
Right. It's their decision. It's their decision.
Yeah.
But okay, so then what did they do? And how long? So how long was it that they were in these groups?
Maybe 2 months.
2 months.
Maybe 3 months.
Okay.
I mean, my ideal would be after about 2 months, they would come together. But usually we're seeing that it's a little slower to embrace. So it might be 4, maybe 5 months.
Got it. That's really helpful. So 3 to 4 people in a time frame of approximately 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
But you're always trying to you're always casting vision for them to do it sooner than later.
Right. Yeah. And then what happened? The same thing happened. Jake and Aaron, they had a group of guys, and then Priya had a group of girls, and so they did the same pattern, and so they just recently identified themselves as a church.
So that was a G2. So that was after they collapsed into a G2. Then they decided to do the same thing, and they've got groups.
And then they decided,
And then they collapsed out into a G3.
Right.
Okay, so talk to us about how this gathering happens, because like, especially with people's schedules and like, what does the vision cast look like? What are they saying to these disciples in these groups? You know, what does this look like to actually gather them together?
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to initially, the discovery groups are getting together for a meal.
Right.
So they're picking like Thursday night, we're going to all have a meal.
Okay.
They're already kind of into a groove of Thursday night meal. So
Yep.
like, let's just turn this to church.
Okay.
Let's do that. Now, there's going to be some fallout, you know, like Barbara had a group of girls and things were going well. Barbara, my wife, and she thought she had the same time everybody. Then she just got a phone call from one of the girls, said, "Oh, I can't do this. My sorority meets then and that." So
Sure.
she's having to reshuffle the deck a little bit.
Right. But a lot of times people, these discipleship groups are more or less meeting when are the disciples or the yellow light folks, when are they available, right?
Right.
And that as the relationship builds over this 3 to 6 month period, they might be more willing to sacrifice schedule to gather at the same time, right?
Right. Yeah. And it pretty much everybody's got to eat. And
sure.
you just say, "Hey, look, we're gonna all eat together on Thursday night. Come join us."
Okay.
And then some will do it. It depends on, you know, we've got, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even Friday night. Now people are more the ones who are focusing on internationals are doing it on Friday night. You know,
okay.
They'll be meeting Friday night. So,
that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so it's pretty informal is what it sounds like. They're just kind of saying, "Hey, well, can the next meeting we'll get together as church here." Now, my first question is, the folks who do decide to meet here, are they continuing to meet here, or do they pretty much let this become their primary point of discipleship?
They let that be their primary point of discipleship.
Okay.
But again, like some of the guys will still get together and play ball and get serious.
Sure.
You know, because during the care time, you know, we're usually asking, where did you see God work that you're thankful for? What are you struggling with? And if somebody says, "Hey, yeah, I'm really struggling with, you know, porn," then, you know, say, "Well, hey, let's meet next week," or "I'm really struggling with a lot of depression."
Right.
You know,
okay, so you got some needs-based accountability or you know, other discipleship time that'll arise.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really helpful. So their primary point of discipleship shifts to this now church with other discovery group folks. Okay, so what if there's yellow light folks who are still in those groups? Are you finding that they will sometimes join here?
Yeah, we are. Now, not all of them, but like with Priya and Jake and Aaron's group, they're 3 yellow lights, but they love it. And they you know, I don't know, they just keep saying, "I got to keep trying," but they're trying. They're kind of like Cornelius. You know, they're not believers yet, but they're very respectful and honoring to the Lord. And
maybe
you know,
taking some steps of obedience in some ways.
Yeah. And so so it's not like, now some of them won't, and so relationally they'll still be touch base with, you know, but they're yellow lights who will join.
Okay.
And,
well, if we've got green lights, maybe you could give us an example of where this has happened. So my next question is about folks who were in these discovery groups, say the green lights, and they're in discipleship there, but this time doesn't work for them, and or they for whatever reason don't join here. How much effort is going into trying to still gather on a time that works for them out here?
That's a great question, because I guess we haven't really run into much of that.
You haven't? Okay, so that hasn't been a barrier.
So, but sometimes I guess you got, you know, I guess there might be a few that can't do it, and they'll still be coming to maybe Sunday morning, or they might even switch over to another area church.
Okay.
so
Okay,
that
so these area churches are kind of talking, because you've got how many streams at this point, approximately, coming out of the ministry? I mean,
yeah, well, we've got 11 area churches, and I'd say 5 of those have 4th generation.
okay.
Other 3, so there's a lot of interaction because of Sunday morning, or because of, different things we do. Like, next Friday, we're going to have a cookout over at our house.
Right.
And so, we're going to see a lot of cross-pollination there.
Okay. So you're being intentional to cross-pollinate, so that if there's a time that doesn't work for someone, maybe they can hop into another area church.
Right. Yeah.
And so
because then it might even go from, well, this is the place where I've been meeting, but I have a passion for running. Okay. And I just found 2 other guys from another area church that really love to run.
Yep.
I don't know why somebody would love to run, but that's everybody's different.
Yep.
But I love to run to the refrigerator, So
love it.
Anyway,
that's really helpful. That's really helpful to understand how you guys, it's really a network of churches that are providing multiple time frames during the week, and even, you said, passions that people can plug into based on their passions or their schedule, but it's still the same network. How big are these churches on average? Because I'm hearing you say maybe a little more than the average critical mass in North America, but I'm curious, are you seeing an average size?
Yeah, I'd say anywhere from 8 to 13.
Okay. All right. So you're at critical mass, which is, again, a major barrier for most urban and definitely collegiate ministry that are running NPO.
And the ones with families, of course, will have a little bit more because of the kids.
Okay.
But again,
talk to me about how this is helping with the transience of the students. Like, how are you seeing, because that's a challenge a lot of folks are facing, either with refugees or other student ministries, or just cities, or people are constantly moving. How are you guys addressing that challenge?
Well, I mean, we have started painting the vision that if you're going to leave, and you the 3 key areas: you're loving God, you're surrendering to His will and His word. Yeah. You're really learning how to love one another, and you're looking for the lost to make disciples. If you really see that's what God's wants, that's His will. Yeah. Then and you've been doing it with a few friends. Well, when you do leave, take your friends with you, and let's start all over again. Right. And I've even communicated that if you want to do this, and you're within like a 2.5, 3 hour drive, I will come initially and coach and get you off the ground. Got it. But like this guy, he's a freshman, Matthew Chilton. He really saw this last year as a freshman. He got his parents coming to our training. He invited me to his parents' church, and then he decided to transfer to University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Okay. And so now the guy who was training him, Paxton Scott, he and I have now got a plan to go to Greensboro to help Matthew and his family get off the ground. We're going to do kind of a training. So again, if they're leaving, we're saying, leave, take some friends with you, start over. But even if you don't take some friends, get some friends, and let's start this all over again. Amen. And so that's kind of how Okay.
But I guess are a lot of these area churches staying on the Gen Map, or are you kind of having to restart the work based on the collegiate cycle pretty regularly?
Yeah, that's we breathe. Like there's a solid core that's very solid. Of course, that's what solid is. But that sometimes we'll have more churches, then they'll leave, and we'll kind of shrink. So it's breathing there. So we have kind of like the trunk of our tree.
Yeah.
We say the trunk. I mean, our vision is not college. Our vision is making disciples of all nations.
Yeah.
But it's logical to start at college because you've got the future leaders. The future's behind us. The leaders are there. You've got like the guy who took over Gaddafi when Gaddafi was ousted. He was a graduate PhD student from NC State.
Wow.
Yeah. To my knowledge, nobody shared the gospel with him. But again, it's such a strategic place.
That's really cool.
So yeah, I forget where I'm going. I'm getting off on a tangent here.
No, it's cool. You were just saying that the vision isn't just for college campus. So that was one of my last questions is, how is it going seeing this multiply off campus into homes in the area?
It's a little slower.
Okay.
Because again, you've got 35,000 at NC State in one area, and it's easier. But we say the trunk of our tree is college students and internationals.
Okay.
But the limbs and the fruit drop all over.
Got it.
And so we are, like I had one guy say, Berk, I do not like college students. Do I have to find another church? I said, no, find another church. Go to an apartment and start a new church.
Yeah.
And so he started working with Justin White and Stephen as far as reaching out to Hispanics. And so they've got a church going. They don't come on Sunday morning, which is not that big a deal because, again, the issue is, are disciples being made, and are disciples, understand the value of, a local expression. And so, now Joe still comes on Sunday morning, and but he knows his church is in the Hispanic community. So the fruit is dropping there. It's a little slower.
Got it.
There's another there's a church that meets on Friday nights, and they're mainly reaching singles and people in their neighborhoods. It's slower, but it's still as intentional.
Okay. Cool. And they're using the same collapse into the next church type approach, right? Right. Well, I love this for a lot of reasons. Like I said, I see disciples making disciples, which is the biblical mandate here. But then churches are making the collective decision to plant the next church. And they're doing that together. Now, my one question is, though, you mentioned a legacy church Sunday morning service, which I think is cool because a lot of folks are trying to, figure out how does an MPL meet anywhere type church multiplication vision fit with a legacy church. But you've got this church here that meets on Sunday morning that's kind of providing a covering in many ways, right? For the whole network. Right. How are you stewarding that? Like, how many folks are coming here on average? And then how are you not preventing everyone from coming here?
Well, that's a great question. And it's probably about 150, give or take 20, depending on football weekends. We are unique that we meet on campus at NC State. We have an auditorium, and the university could shut us down in a heartbeat. Just because we've had some confrontations with the administration about if we're a church, people are always upset about that. So, but anyway, but we'll have about 150, give or take 20, depending on the time of year. And we also even make an announcement every Sunday morning that, hey, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is one aspect of church, but this isn't really church. Church is where you really get to know people and worship people. Acts 20:20 talks about Paul taught publicly and house to house. And so we kind of say, look, we've got these area churches. If you really want to understand communion and baptism and really get to know what it is to follow Christ and be responsible, this is what you need to be a part of. Or
so if someone shows up here on Sunday, you're really encouraging existing believers to plug into a area church.
Right.
And then if you've got
we're also promoting discovery groups.
If you've got an unbeliever, you're pushing people to those discovery groups.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And so so we're doing that, and then even kind of our format, like we'll we'll start this after we have some song, we'll usually get up and say, okay, who was in the Word 5 to 7 times this week?
Okay.
So there's a little bit of accountability.
Okay.
So people, because we kind of emphasize, hey, yeah, if you want to really grow, you got to be in the Word. You can't depend on a pastor. You've got to be like the Berean, and you got to be reading. So we'll ask that question, and even at the end after the message, we will say, okay, turn the person next to you. What stuck out to you? What are you going to do this week? What are you going to pray this week?
Got it.
And then also go grab lunch with somebody afterwards and talk about what you're going to do. So we're trying to at least kind of get some accountability there.
Okay.
On our Sunday morning.
Right, but you're really pushing people to the area churches.
Yeah.
There, but you're trying to do a little bit of the pattern of care on that Sunday morning as well.
Right. Yeah, a little bit. But again, it's kind of like we're just not making Sunday morning a big deal, because we figure if disciples are being made and people are connecting with the area church, then they're really connecting with grace.
Right.
That's the name of our church, Grace. So they're really connected, because snowstorm comes or hurricane comes, we're not going to cancel church.
Right.
We're just going to say, connect with your area church that morning if you can't make it to this, this building. But we have made a policy. We never cancel our church. If you can't make it, you can't make it.
Got it.
Like university last year, they shut down the university because of Hurricane Matthew.
Got it.
And all the churches in the area were canceling. Well, the word went out. Grace is still meeting in 5 different locations. So we had some of the area churches meeting together in the same area. So and so I don't know whether that answers your question.
No, it totally does, bro. That's so helpful to understand how you've got a legacy church, traditional Sunday morning service with some tweaks to it, but you're pushing that church identity out to these, churches that are meeting mostly in homes, and consistently under the umbrella of Grace, seeing 4th generation church on a collegiate campus. This is really, really cool. So last 2 questions, and I think you could probably answer them as like one, but what are you doing for leadership development and coaching, and where are you stuck? And I know a lot of times when you're doing leadership development, you're dealing with the stuckages. So where are your leaders stuck? How are you helping them? What do those meeting rhythms look like for the key leaders? What are you doing for leadership development?
The key lead, a lot of it's mauling, because I'm still popping in with either getting out in the harvest with the current leader, or I'm visiting their church or discovery group to see how things are going. We do have a once a month gathering for our trainers. And again, we changed the word from leader to trainer, so that they would understand I'm not there to lead a meeting. I'm here to train the saints. And so
what's a trainer's? If I'm a trainer in your network, what's my understanding of that role, and what am I able to do?
You're to train others in the sword method. You're to train others in working with their oikos. You're to train others how to be effective in the gospel and follow up the 411. So it's not just giving instructions and going to do it, but you're mauling.
You're mauling. So am I only going to maul my next generation churches, or am I kind of moving throughout the network and helping wherever the barriers are?
Initially, you're mauling your network,
Okay.
And then, as that's being effective, you're going to be mauling more. Like,
Okay.
there are a couple of brothers that, I'm taking along with me to when I'm mauling others. So we're kind of preparing them for when God takes me home or something happens,
Okay. So what does that monthly meeting look like?
It's more of hitting on stuff. He's like, here we are in the 4 fields. Are you meeting people? Is the gospel going out? But a lot of it is, how are you vision casting for new people to take on new roles and responsibilities?
Okay.
That's kind of the main thing.
You're really emphasizing that with the transience of the leadership.
Yeah, because some of the stuckages are like people enjoying their church, but their eyes aren't lifted up, like the disciples just bypassed the Samaritan woman, and
Right.
Jesus had to remind them, hey, here comes a crowd, you better be ready.
Right.
And so sometimes they just get so comfortable that they don't want to get out of the boat. They don't want to get out of the comfort zone.
Right.
And so that's kind of the stuckage. I mean, the main stuckage, just God's providing all these opportunities. You just got to be more friendly. I mean, this may sound strange, but it kind of goes back to that point I was making out, that they say in America, 1 out of every 5 millennials they don't believe they have a friend.
Okay.
And you got that verse from King James that says, he who has friends must show himself to be friendly.
That's right.
And a lot of people just don't know how to be friendly. They just don't.
Yeah, especially people in my generation. So yeah, we're more of our fake friends online, but
but they don't know how to go up and look at somebody in the eye. That's something even mauling in. I mean, I've had to tell people that. I said, you got to look these people in the eye. You got to smile. Yes, you're a prophet, but you need to smile when you say rough things. I mean, you can get away with a lot of stuff if you smile.
Right.
And, little relational skill things. You're having to remind them, even to have confidence that God wants to use you. If Moses didn't think God wanted to use him, but God had to convince him. And
is there a format you're using for that meeting, or is it just kind of based on?
We're still trying to do more of the 3/3.
Okay.
Again, we're asking, what have you seen lately? What are you struggling with, particularly, sin? We kind of narrow it down to, like, from Hebrews 12. It says, don't come short of the grace of God. Let there be no bitterness, immorality, or godlessness like Esau. And so, say, hey, where's your battle right now? Is it with purity? Is it bitterness or greed?
Okay.
And so we're asking people about that, and then and usually there is kind of we're usually asking people, like, what is your vision?
Okay.
You know what God's vision is, but what's gripping you?
Okay.
And so we'll have them kind of share that, and kind of having people set goals for their area church. Like, we want to make sure this month we want to have shared the gospel 317 times.
Okay.
And
so you're setting goals for gospel shares at that meeting a little bit too.
Yeah.
But every month, or is that more on a quarterly basis?
Well, it's kind of pretty much every month. They're kind of like, hey, what did we see happen? And did we meet these goals?
You're focusing on your controllables with these guys.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And
singles and doubles. That's so cool. Any iron on iron rhythms right now, or?
That is one thing we're failing in, or not doing well in. We're starting to step up the game a little bit on that. But we need to step up the game.
Well, I do. I do too. I mean, I'm trying to get that quarterly rhythm going with everyone I'm working, but it's challenging.
Being with Justin White has really been helpful with that.
Okay. Anywhere else you're stuck that you'd invite folks in the network to pray for you in regards to?
Well, just it sounds simple, but just that God would open our eyes.
Okay.
Because again, we can get so myopic, and we don't see dead people.
Okay.
We really don't. We see people that are cool. I mean, and we don't see dead people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see. I mean, there's a reason Jesus prayed for laborers, because he went out, he saw they were sheep without a shepherd, and had felt compassion, and then he said prayer. I mean, a lot of us just aren't getting out to see people as lost.
Yeah.
And so just asking God to raise up laborers who really see the lostness, and even praying for me in that area.
Okay.
Because I can get so caught up in kind of the mechanics of, getting multiplication that I forget the lostness.
Amen.
And so, I mean, it sounds so simple, but like Paul said, pray that I'd be effective and we'd all be effective, and God would raise up more people being effective in sharing the gospel.
Amen.
And that, but also, I guess another thing to pray that people would trust us.
Okay.
Because there's just this mistrust. I mean, distrust. I mean, nobody, everybody's suspicious.
You talking enough within the network, but sometimes within.
Yeah, outside. I mean, as we're sharing.
The Christian community is especially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the lost community. I mean, that's one thing I pray. I mean, I'm old. I'm 64 years old, and it's got to be a little suspicious. A 64. That's back when I was at Clemson, and the police stopped me. They said, "Isn't this odd?" I said, "What do you mean it's odd?" He says, "Odd that an old man is talking with a young student." And I just looked at him. I said, "Nothing odd about that. If anybody needs to be talking to people, it's the older generation talking with the younger generation. But sometimes the younger generation, they don't trust. Why is this old man talking to me?" And so, just praying that the generation coming behind us would want to learn, that they'd want to listen to, and they trust that, they realize that science doesn't have the answer. Their professors don't have the answers.
Right.
But there are people who have a track record. I mean, there's a reason I'm still following the Lord. There's a reason I've got 39 years of marriage. And it was little decisions I made when I was young that have made a big difference now. And so you try to pass that on. So I don't know, that's a long answer to your question about that.
That's good. It's good. Is there a way folks can get in touch with you if they have other questions?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to berkwilson@gmail.com.
Okay.
I guess that's a good way, or to go to our,
So Berk, I'm just going to put this here for folks. Berk Wilson @gmail.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
It used to be Juno, but I switched it over to Gmail. So,
I'm glad to hear that. Well, cool, bro. I'm going to call it right here.
all right.